What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be working on a 2010 Honda Fit. We're going to pull the motor from it. I watched a guy on YouTube, and I'll link him in the description, pull the motor, so I'm going to follow his steps and see if I can make a halfway decent video for it. I did 278,000 miles before I lost cylinder 1, and I was able to pick up another motor on Marketplace with the 133,000 for 500 bucks. So we'll see how it goes. So something I'm going to do when I start removing the connectors, I'm going to use blue tape, and I'm going to tape it on both sides, and I'm just going to start numbering from 1 until I'm done disconnecting the connectors. So I took the battery out to just give me a little bit more room. Now I'm going to take the air box off. I'm pretty sure that I've got to remove this, which is a 10, and then I'll update you on the next one. Okay, so I removed the 110 right here, and then there's 110 right here that I've got to remove. So I loosened the bolt right here. That was a 5.5. And then I've just got to wiggle the box out. It's kind of tight with everything where it is. So I loosened this little bolt right here off of the throttle body. That was a 5.5. And then I had to remove the 10 and the 10. And now I've just got to wiggle it out. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the injectors. And then I'm going to use this little switch right here, push it in, and then I'll be able to pull the injectors up in a moment. Okay, so now I've removed the hose, I've removed the throttle body connector, and I didn't mean to say injectors. Those are for the coil packs back there where I had disconnected them all. Okay, so I removed this connector down here too. I was struggling with it, so I used these, and I used a rubber mallet, and I just kind of tapped it down to get the hoses off. Okay, so now I'm working on removing this. There was a 10 here, a 10 here. I'm putting my bolts back as I go. I'm working on getting the bolt out of here, and I gotta disconnect the connector so I can pull this back. I did disconnect this connector. It goes right in there, and then I will disconnect this stuff in a bit. Okay, so I removed this connector. I removed the block. I still need to remove the alternator stuff, but this little connector right here, it's not a push down, it's a pull up, and then it pulls out. All right, whenever you're doing the alternator bolt, it's a 10, but mine managed to break off from the alternator, so lucky me. Okay, so I'm removing the intake bolts now. They're all 12s. There's one right there, one right there, one over here, and then there's 2 underneath. You can kind of see the one I'm already removing, and then there's one over here that you'll have to remove. I'm using a 12 and a wobbly. Okay, so I went ahead and moved this portion of it. It was, I'm gonna show you on the ground. It was a 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. Disconnect this. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those were 12s as well. Now I'm going to try to take this portion off now. All right, so there is a bolt right over here somewhere, if I could point it out to you. Right there, that I've got to remove, and I think that will allow it to release. I've just got to disconnect this hose on the back. Okay, so after I removed the 12 that was over here, right there, there are 2 10s right next to each other, and that's got it released. Now I've just got to probably disconnect a few hoses, and I'll pull this off. All right, I got the intake off. So I had to disconnect this hose on the back of the intake, but I disconnected it at the second point, and I used a pair of pliers and these, and I just kind of stretched it to get it over this. Now I'm going to remove this back here, and we'll go from there. All right, so now I remove the injector wiring. You just hit the little clip right here, and then these clip on. You have to push them down again, not pull them up, and that's how they'll come off. So I was just using my thumbnail, just like that. I'm trying to move everything out of the way. I think I'm gonna have to take this off next so I can get to the starter. So I had removed this hose earlier and it wanted to leak. I just taped it off because I didn't have a tray underneath, but I've got a tray catching everything now. And then I'm gonna remove this bolt, which I think is, wait a moment. Okay, so they're both 10s. There's a 10 here, and then there's a 10 right there. All right, so I needed to disconnect these hoses so I could take those two bolts out. So here's one hose. The second hose I didn't want to pull from that side, so I pulled it from this side. All right, so I got this removed, but I couldn't get the pipe out of this side, so I had to do it from this side. And the only way to do that was to take the alternator out, so I had to remove a 12 and then a 12 down here. But that would have been right here and down here on the other side. And then I used a screwdriver and I pushed the pipe out. So now I'm gonna start working on the starter. I've got almost everything done to get the motor out of the car. I took an intake off. I took the air filter, the battery, the alternator, that's a part of the intake, a reservoir, and that thing. Alright, so I am struggling. I cannot get the connector off of the starter, and there is a connector right there that I cannot get off. So I guess I'm gonna call it for tonight. But got the alternator off, got just about everything else disconnected besides the stuff on the back of the motor. So I guess I will update you guys whenever I figure it out. I got a lot done, but I can't get, there's a connector down here that I cannot get released, and a connector in between there that I cannot get released. And then I think I moved to the back of the motor, but intake off, air cleaner, alternator, I'm gonna have to replace that because the bolt broke off, part of the intake, a little reservoir, and then where the thermostat housing is. So I took a 2-day break after I tried to get the connector off of the starter, which is right here, and this connector that was underneath this harness, which was right here. And then I had another connector back here. What I ended up doing was I used a little tiny screwdriver and I kind of just picked it up on the side, and then I used a bigger screwdriver and it loosened out. I can't believe it was that easy. It took me less than 5 minutes once I figured that out. Alright, update for you. I got the starter out. I don't know if I said that or not. So it came out pretty easy. There, show you on the floor. This was a 17, and I want to say this was a 14. And then I just slid it out through the top. And then I started working on disconnecting the header. I got that done. There is a shield on the header, so I'll show you that. It had 10mm bolts, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I had an O2 sensor that I had to remove. So I actually didn't have the tool for that, so I went to O'Reilly and I rented the tool. And it came off rather easy, but I had just had my O2 sensors replaced not too long, so they wouldn't be seized. And then there were two 12 nuts on top of the header. So they were right on the top, and then there were bolts on the side of the header. That's where I'm at right now, and I think I'm gonna try to take off the idler pulley next. before I crawl underneath it and drain the oil and try to disconnect the motor from the transmission. All right, update. I have to remove the AC compressor. They remove the lines, but I'm gonna see if I can just drop it and see if it can hang down there. But if I have to take it off, I will. There is a mount right there. You can see that one bolt, and then there's two below. I've got to remove that. Got to remove the bolts on the flywheel, and then I've got to remove the bolts from the transmission. And I think that's it, and I should be able to pull it. But I will update you guys whenever I come back out here again. Well, it's been a little bit since I've come out here. I'm gonna remove the AC compressor. I think it's four 12 millimeter bolts. So it's right down there. It should be at 12 if I'm not mistaken. I'll let you know. All right, I got the AC compressor disconnected. I did take out the fans. It was 2 10s on each side, and then there were power connectors, one on the bottom and then one on the top over here on mine. So, but I think I'm gonna try to leave the AC down there and try not to disconnect it so I don't have to recharge my system, but time will tell. I guess I'll let y'all know if I have to end up taking it out. Now I'm gonna have to take off the tensioner if I'm not mistaken, but I think I'm gonna try to remove this whole assembly. I don't know if this whole assembly will come off or not though. I guess I'll let you know. Okay, so I had to remove that heat shield. You see how it's pulled back? I got the motor mount out. That was 3 14 bolts. The heat shield was 2 12s. Alright, so I used the jack to support the transmission. My jack wasn't long enough, so I made do. I took out all of the bolts for the motor. There was one right here, one on the back side of the left side of the motor way back here, and then there was another one that I reached from the top. I did a few from the bottom. There was this plate on the back side of the motor that had 3 12 millimeter bolts that I removed. There's one right there, 2, and 3. So realistically, I have to take that big bolt out, which I do not suggest removing until you're ready to take the motor out. And then I've got one motor mount bolt on the bottom, but I want to get the engine hoist all put together first and get it on the motor before I start trying to remove that last bolt, because the motor and trans are moving around quite a bit. Well, it came out pretty easy. The only thing I had to do was I had to disconnect this mount. So that was 3 14 millimeter bolts. I was able to leave the AC compressor in. The only thing that sucks is the transmission is leaking all the transmission fluid out on the ground because it's at a tilt right now, and I didn't put enough kitty litter underneath there to get it all fixed. But yeah, out of the car. Pretty sick. Alrighty, I dollied the old motor over here. I'm gonna have to pull a few things off of it, like I'm gonna reuse my gaskets and whatnot. And I dragged the new one over here. I've got it ready to go in. Whenever I do get it to start, when I start, I'm gonna have to make sure I use that engine mount and make sure that thing is propped back. And then you've gotta leave this plate in here. So if you don't leave that plate in there, I don't know how you'd be able to get it in with the exhaust being in the way. So, but I'm about to give it a shot. Let you know how it goes. Okay, I'm gonna show you my cart. So my windshield wipers don't work, alternator, starter, oil filter, my manifold gasket, air filter, another filter, spark plugs, a wiper pump, not sure which one I need, wipers, a belt, replacements for my coils, my gasket for my valve cover, oil, and antifreeze. Well, it was a productive day. Got the engine put back in, got everything tightened up, got the new alternator, new starter. I put the exhaust all back together. So the only thing I have left is the intake, and I was going to use the new one, but they broke this little piece right here, so I will have to use mine, but I'll probably pull the newer throttle body off and use that intake stuff. And then I've got a little tank, got the air filter, and put a battery in. And then I have to fill it back up with radiator fluid, do an oil change, aka add oil, and then add transmission fluid, because I leaked all of that out. But not bad. I had a buddy help me at 5:15, took us 45 minutes to get the motor on the transmission and all the bolts in. And right now it is 9:30. So took me 3.5 hours to get all the accessories, most of the connectors put back on. I've got most of the hoses connected. So yeah. Oh, and the flywheel bolts. I'm gonna try to go to Honda tomorrow and see if I can get some new flywheel bolts, since I think you have to use new ones every time, but I broke one of mine, which didn't make me feel good, so I'll go get all new ones.
It's a lot.
Okay guys, so I'm gonna do a recap video because I didn't end this video off. It's now been probably almost close to a year since I've replaced the motor in this Honda over here, and it is running really well, but I'm gonna try to recap everything, that way there could be an ending to this. Good day guys. So I'm gonna recap this video because I feel like I did a really good job explaining what I did to put the motor or take the motor apart, but I didn't explain more or less putting it together. Pretty much what I did was I recapped my video I replayed my videos from the beginning, and that's how I put it back together. So I would definitely suggest replacing your accessories. I did new alternator, new starter. Let's see, I'll look and see, and then I'll let you know. Okay, so really, I guess I just replaced the alternator, and then I replaced the starter, and then I wanted to replace the line, the positive line, but I didn't have that, and my battery keeps corroding, but I did end up replacing this the other day. So this piece just comes off and it caps off, and then I used whenever I got this motor, I couldn't use the new intake because it was broken off on the back, but I used all the new stuff I could. I did new spark plugs, I changed the oil. So I would say make sure all your connectors are connected all the way, because I had an issue, it wouldn't run right, and it was because I didn't have the VGT connected all the way. It was literally just hanging out, but it wouldn't idle. So you need to do a relearn if you replace the throttle body, and that just was literally me cranking it up and revving it to 3,000 RPMs. I think it was like 30 seconds or something like that, so which wasn't too bad. But let me show you how many miles I've got on the car now. Okay, so right now I've got, 283, 399. I put in 6,750 miles on this new motor. I haven't done another oil change yet, but my gas mileage has gone up almost 3 miles per gallon just from changing the motor. So I didn't really recap Okay, so I didn't really recap why or what had happened to my motor. So my mom bought this car new. I bought it from her with 80,000. I put almost 200 on it, but we both work at the post office, so she put 80,000 route miles. I put another 70,000 route miles, and then I want to say around like 260s, it started burning oil, and it just progressively got worse. I went up to like a thicker oil, and it was burning almost a quart every 500 miles. So I knew that the motor was going to go. I wanted to replace the motor and the trans at the same time, but I got a really good deal on the motor for 500 bucks, but transmissions for these cars used are almost 1,500. So I wasn't about to replace the transmission. I ended up only being in at about 900 bucks by the time I bought the alternator and starter and other small accessory bits that were needed. So I hope this is a good recap. I'll try to answer any questions you have. And then I'm also going to tag the video or share the link to the video in the description. And hopefully, you could watch that video. But everything that I saw, you pretty much had to pull the motor from the bottom since it's a cradle car. And when I watched this guy do it, he jacked the car up off the ground by about almost 2 feet, and then he was able to pull it from the top. So the hood has two positions. You can jack the hood up like this. And all this plastic obviously comes out if you're gonna end up trying to do this yourself. But I jacked the car up to an extent, it was kind of like this, so the motor just kind of like pulled up, which was kind of cool. So, but in terms of experience, I have never done an engine pull. I have never helped anybody do an engine pull. This was the first time for me. So just from watching an 11-minute video, that gave me the confidence to do this myself. So hopefully this video is a little bit better, a bit more detailed, and helps you if you decide that you want to pull the motor on your car. All in all, it probably took me 5 hours to put the motor back in. I bet I had close to 20 hours getting it out, but I was taking my time. Like, there was no rush for me. I have another vehicle, so luckily I was blessed on that point. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. Let me know if there's any questions.